Welcome to Intuitive Writer, the podcast and YouTube channel dedicated to exploring the intersection of creativity and spirituality. I'm your host, fiction author Camille Picott. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Intuitive Writer podcast and YouTube show. I'm your host, Camille Picott. I hope everybody out there has been having a lovely summer so far, and I hope you've all been enjoying some great time with your creativity. I'm going to start this episode with a little bit of a writing update, and it's actually just a short story because I like the story because it really illustrates the importance of patience and surrender when you write with your intuition or when you're co-creating with the universe on a creative project. And patience and surrender have not been two of my outstanding qualities through most of my life. They're lessons that the universe continuously brings me, which I appreciate. I always appreciate my lessons. But I thought it'd be fun to share this short little story with you so that you could see them in action. I have been asking the universe for a content magnet for my newest series, Jesus Christ Zombie Killer. And for those of you who aren't in the book world or in the selling world, you might not know what a content magnet is, but let me just give you a brief description. You know how when you go to a website and you'll get a little pop-up button that says, hey, subscribe to our newsletter and get a 10% coupon, or hey, subscribe to our newsletter and receive this PDF with fancy yoga moves or something. That's a content magnet. What it is it's something that you give away for free in exchange for an email address so that you can build your newsletter subscriber list. So it's something that I wanted to do with my newest series. And a lot of writers offer free short stories or free novellas or sometimes even free books as content magnets on their website. So yeah, that's what I do. And I had been asking the universe to send me one for my newest series. And I was getting ready to do some chores one weekend, and I heard the universe tell me, you need to go research the 12 apostles. You should all be impressed that I knew there were 12, so, since I don't have a Christian upbringing. But yes, there are 12 apostles, and so I pulled up my YouTube app and I typed in the 12 apostles, and I found a video on them, and so I turned it on and I started doing my chores, and I was just listening and learning, and it was all very interesting. And suddenly I came to the story of Judas, and it's so interesting when a story or characters, when they step forward to work with me, there's definitely like this physical sensation, like I felt the tug immediately. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be paying attention. Judas is important. I felt that tug. I like to think of it too as the universe like dangling a cord. Have you guys ever seen those attic ladders that you install? And so there's a cable that comes down from the ceiling, and when you pull it, the little hatch, the ladder slides down. So it's kind of like that. So there was this cord dangling down with Judas, and I could feel that energy. And so I yanked, metaphysically, I yanked on this attic ladder cord, and everything just tumbled in. And suddenly there I was, and I could see the arc of this short story or novella that I had been asking to bring in. And sometimes when I download or channel like that, when I'm not in meditation, it is almost like they showed in the movies where you're transported somewhere else and you completely become unaware of what's going on around you. It was definitely one of those moments. It was a really strong channeling, and I could see the story, I could feel the character, and I couldn't even hear the YouTube video anymore because the story was so loud. And then I even went later that day and I sat in meditation and I sat in the energy of the story, and I asked it to come in, and I was able to pull in even more details, and I was so excited. But this is the fun part. I received basically everything, what I think is everything, except the main motivation of the character of Judas. And I was like, wow, okay, well that's kind of a big deal, right? For those of you who don't know, Judas is the apostle that sold Jesus out to the Roman soldiers. And so I needed his motivation. I was like, okay, it's kind of a big thing to be missing. I'm glad I got all the plot and all the, the fun, juicy action parts, but I need the character motivation. And I asked, and I got nothing. It was totally silent. I didn't get anything. And I was a little frustrated. Like I said, patience has not been historically my middle name. And so I just realized, I'm like, okay, for whatever reason, the story doesn't want to divulge that right now. The character doesn't want to share this with me. So I always ask when I need help. So I just said, hey, I really need to know the character's motivation for this story before I can do anything. And I went about my business, and probably about a week passed. And I was working on another creative project. I can't recall if I was editing my novel or if I was recording a podcast. I'm not sure. But what I do remember was when I wrapped up, when I reached the end of that creative project, as soon as I did, it was like something opened up and Judas came back, and he dropped in everything that I needed for his character motivation. And it was really exciting. I'm like, oh, he's here. I got it. Okay, I'm ready. So I have everything I need now to write this short story about Judas for the series, Jesus Christ Zombie Killer, and I'm super excited. It's going to be really cool to peel back the layers of his character and work with the energy and breathe life into him on the page. So this is just an example of how important it is to have trust and patience and surrender when you're working with the universe. Everything comes to you when it's ready. And know, as mere puny humans, we don't always understand divine timing, but we are subject to divine timing if we just relax and let it happen. So this is just an example. So as you move forward in your writing practice, in your intuitive writing practice, maybe just keep this in the back of your mind, how important it is to trust and have surrender and have a little patience. The old school writing techniques out there would tell you, oh, just keep pushing, or oh, go outline, or oh, go do this, go do that, go brainstorm, whatever. But honestly, if you just talk to your stories and you tell them what you need and you make a little space and wait patiently, I find that they do show up. They do come. They do bring the information that you need, and there's no reason to keep banging your head against the computer. You can go off and do other things and wait for the story to show up when it's ready. So definitely keep an eye out for the Book of Judas, this free content magnet that I will be giving away on my website. I have grand plans to have it available in early August, but we'll see. Sometimes my grand plans don't play out, but anyway, that's the grand plan at the moment. And now we're going to jump into this episode. And the theme of this episode is going to be sacred space and dealing with criticism as an artist. First, let's talk about criticism, because when you're an artist and you put your work into the world, you are going to be subject to criticism. It's just the way it is. The entire global village has opinions, and they all like to publish them on the internet. Whether you make movies, right? There's sites like Rotten Tomatoes. Whether you're an art critic, whether you love books, whatever it is, if there's art out there, there exists places for people to express their opinions about it, right? And criticism, I guess it can be both positive and negative. For the sake of this podcast episode, we're going to talk about it in the negative aspect, because as an artist, there is a certain amount of vulnerability that's always involved in releasing your co-creation into the public. It's very vulnerable because you have worked very hard and you've poured a piece of yourself into whatever you have created, and criticism is difficult. It is hard. It's also inevitable. Now we're going to talk about sacred space and what this means as an artist, and most especially as an intuitive artist. I would define sacred space in a general sense as to be a place where you go to engage with your higher power. That can be church, that could be kneeling beside your bed at night when you pray. It can be your meditation altar, wherever it is. Sometimes I think sacred space is even just within you, however it is that you are connecting with your higher power. And I have talked in this podcast about how my creativity is very much an aspect of my spirituality, and that it is very much a spiritual practice for me. That when I engage in my creativity, I am actually surrendering to the divine out there and co-creating things that want to exist in this world. And I co-create with divine energy, source, whatever you want to call it. We're being really broad here. My creativity is very much both a sacred practice and a sacred space for me. And I don't have a set place in my house where I write. I move all over. I like to be around my family, so I tend to be writing wherever they're hanging out. So sometimes it's the bedroom, sometimes it's the kitchen, sometimes it's the living room. I move around, but whatever the case, when I have my computer and I'm connected with the universe and my stories and my characters, that is my sacred time, and the sacred space exists wherever I am. Now, as an artist, this criticism that we talked about, it is going to come knocking at your door. It is going to show up at the door of your sacred space. And you have to decide how you're going to interface with it and how much space you're going to give it within this sacred container where you're working. And honestly, there's a lot of opinions out there, and I've come to the conclusion there's no right or wrong way. You just have to find what works for you. So I'm going to talk about two extreme ways of dealing with criticism. On the one hand, I know writers, and I've heard writers who speak about how they really thrive from criticism. They read all their 1-star reviews, and it really helps them expand and grow as artists, and they appreciate them and they welcome them into their sacred space. And then on the other hand, I've also heard and experienced such things where you get your first 1-star review and it feels like you've been run over by a car. Or no, something bigger. You've been run over by a dump truck. And it's very painful, and you kind of feel like you want to go outside in your backyard with a shovel and dig a hole and bury yourself alive. So these are two very extreme ends of the spectrum for how criticism can affect you as an artist. And of course, there's the range, right, of everything in between. I heard another author speak, and I can't remember his name, but he had a very interesting practice where he didn't read any reviews, positive or negative. He hired somebody to read all of his reviews and then give him the high-level notes on any overarching themes they saw, both positive or negative, and he received this information from somebody that he trusted, and that was how he digested reviews. So the point of all this is, as an artist, as an intuitive artist working with the universe, this is your sacred space. Your creativity is your sacred space. You have to figure out on a personal level how much room you're going to give criticism within this sacred space, within this sacred container. So think about your physical sacred space. Perhaps it's your meditation altar or church, or your prayer rug, whatever it is. Just think about, like, who would you allow into that sacred space while you're engaging with your higher power. And it's really not so different with creativity. You really have to be mindful and decide what you're going to allow in. And that definitely applies to criticism. And if you're one of those people who really thrives on 1-star reviews, or whatever your particular medium is, if you find it very enlightening and expansive and something that really helps you grow, maybe the doors to your sacred space are wide open. You say, come on in, let's chat. And if you're on the other end of the spectrum where you feel like you've gotten run over by a dump truck, then I would say don't open your doors. Don't open your sacred space to those 1-star reviews. Don't read them. Don't look at them. Don't read them. And I think most people kind of fall somewhere in between. So the whole point of the conversation is to really regard your creativity as something sacred and special to you, and to be mindful about what you allow into that space, and do it in an intentional way that's healthy and nurturing for you. And there's no right or wrong way, and you might have to experiment. You might have to read a 1-star review to find out where you fall on that spectrum, if you're someone that thrives off criticism, or if you're somebody that folds under criticism. And like I said, there's no right or wrong way. You just figure out what works for you, and that's what you allow into your space. And you keep your doors closed to everything else, because you are a creative being, and co-creation is a sacred practice, and you don't have to let things in. You don't have to let the criticism in if you find that it hurts and hinders your creativity. You really don't. You don't have to give it any space at all. It's sort of like maybe the asshole at the gas station that flips you off. You don't have to give that person any space either. And the same goes for criticism of your work. You don't have to give them any more space than you do a jerk that you pass on the road. We're going to take a brief pause from our show. I am a working author, and I produce this show on my own out of a love and passion for my craft. And if you would like to support me, I would greatly appreciate it if you would check out my books on Amazon. You can find me under Camille Picott on Amazon. My books are available in ebook, they're available in print, and they're also in Kindle Unlimited. So if you're a member of Kindle Unlimited, you can read my books for free. And I would appreciate anyone that would leave a review or share the titles with friends that you think would enjoy them. I also have most of my books available as audiobooks, and they're available on all major audiobook platforms, including Audible, and even in libraries. So you can get them for free with a library membership. And the last way you can support me is by joining my monthly Patreon team. I have 2 membership tiers at $1 a month and $5 a month. And the $5 tier gets access to me once a month. We have live chats where you can come in and chat with me in person and ask me any questions about my books and writing. And for everyone that joins at $1 a month, you go into the acknowledgement section of all of my books when I publish them. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and let's get back to the show. I hope I've given you some food for thought on your creativity, your sacred container that you exist in as a creative person, and the inevitable criticism that exists out there. And now I wanted to share the story of why I'm sitting here in front of you talking about this. And I had a very interesting experience. Last week, I put up the cover to my novel, Jesus Christ Zombie Killer. I love the cover. If you get a chance, pop over to Amazon and take a look at it. It's beautiful. I totally love it. I love this story so much. And I'm so honored to be the author that was chosen to write it. But anyway, I think it was within 2 days of posting the story, I got my first email. And I've held a lot of fear around this story, because I know that it invites certain elements into my life that I find uncomfortable. Criticism, confrontation, I'm very uncomfortable with those things. And I know that a book like this with a title such as it is, it opens the door to such things. So I do know that. It's why I wanted to be on the 3-year plan with Jesus, and why I didn't want to write the book right now, because I was feeling like a chicken. But I didn't really have a choice. The story didn't give me a choice. And if you're interested in that, go back and listen to episode 20. I talk about that in detail. But so back to the story. I got the first email. Somebody was very upset by this book that's not even out yet. And as far as this type of email goes, it was actually as pleasant as it could be. And basically it was the email asked me not to publish this book. in very nice words. But when you strip everything away and you look at it, it's censorship, right? Somebody is asking me not to authentically express myself in the world because they're offended by it. And that's a hard one to swallow. And I really had to sit with it, and I had to, call in the people that love me and support me unconditionally and have some good talks. And I really was on the fence as to whether or not I was going to respond to this very pleasant email that was asking me to censor myself. And on the one hand, I knew that nothing I said could convince this person. Nothing I was going to say was going to get this person on my team, basically. So I was coming at it from a perspective of, is this an opportunity to speak my truth and stand in my truth? Or is this something I just need to ignore? And I wasn't sure what the answer was. I wasn't sure what was right for me. So I just sat with it for a couple of days. And I was sitting in a meditation, probably almost like a prayer state. And I was connecting with Christ energy in this meditative state and just talking a little bit about what I was experiencing. And I asked, should I respond? Should I respond to this email and share some of the experiences that I've had with you, with this Christ energy while I've been writing? Because I felt it so strongly, and I've changed so much over the course of working on this book. I went from being so uncomfortable with Christ energy to it now being something that's very important in my life. It brings me a lot of love and support. And so I have had this transformative journey, and I was asking, should I share this? Is this a chance for me to speak my truth, stand in my truth? I'm not sure what I should do. So when I asked Jesus, should I respond to this person who sent me this email asking me to censor myself, he said simply, there's no need. That was it. He said, there's no need. I said, okay. So after that, I grabbed one of my oracle decks. I love oracle cards so much. They really help me tap into my intuition and access the messages that want to come through to me. So I grabbed my Urban Crow oracle deck, which is one of my most favorites, and this was the card that I picked right after I had my small chat with Jesus. And if you're on YouTube, you can see it. The card is Sacred Space, and it's two beautiful crows looking down on their nest with some eggs on the inside. And it's a very beautiful picture. And as soon as I saw the words sacred space, I channeled through the whole teaching that wanted to come through to me. And that's basically what I've shared with you today, with how my creativity is this sacred space, and I just have to be mindful about who and what I let into that space. And for me, responding to that email was inviting something into my space that wasn't going to be healthy or beneficial for me. So I went back to my inbox, I deleted it, I said goodbye, and over the next couple days, I realized that this teaching wasn't just for me. This teaching was for everybody out there that's creative. And so it came from both my conversation with Jesus and connecting with this crow energy and connecting with the universe and the wisdom that it offers. And so that's what I'm doing today. I'm just here sharing it with all of you, and I hope that you have found something in it for you. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I always appreciate everybody that is here in this intuitive writing space with me. I appreciate you guys so much. I just can't express. And if you want to reach out, I'm at Write with Intuition on both Instagram and on Facebook. And I've moved up the release date of my newest novel. I did have it pre-releasing on Christmas, but I've decided that I'm going to release it on August 8th. And for those of you who are into astrology, August 8th is known as the Lion's Gate portal. And I thought, oh, how beautiful to channel through some lion energy and strength and majesty and release Jesus Christ, zombie killer, into the world on that day. So it's going to be releasing on August 8th, and I'll drop the pre-order link into the show notes. I'm going to release it for 99 cents, which is like, that's cheaper than a Starbucks, guys. So I would really appreciate everybody who would go to Amazon and pre-order this amazing adventure from me. Thank you. And I will see everyone soon. And I wish you all a lovely week with lots of creativity. Take care. Bye.